Hi, this is Aaron, and today we're going to compare the Samsung Galaxy Tab to the Apple iPad. And as you can see, the Galaxy Tab is significantly smaller. And let's start with the specs. First of all, on Verizon, which this is the actual Verizon Samsung Galaxy Tab, the price is $600. And then you'll need a contract or rather a data plan to use the data through 3G. It has a 7-inch TFT LCD screen with a 1024 by 600 resolution. It runs Android 2.2, has a 1 GHz Cortex A8 processor, and can have 16 or 32 gigabytes of internal memory. It also is expandable up to 32 gigabytes via microSD in the side here. It has 512 RAM and multitasking. It also has a capacitive multi-touch screen with a 1.3 megapixel forward-facing camera and a 3.2 with flash in the back. This also has GPS and has up to 7 hours of video playback, has a 30-pin connector on the bottom, and is about a little less than a pound at 0.84 pounds. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the iPad has in comparison. The current iPad, as you can see, is bigger and heavier. It is 9.7 inches. It's an LED IPS screen with a 1024 by 768 resolution. Currently, it has the iPhone or iOS 4.2.1 on it. It also has 32 or 64 gigabytes of memory, has a 1 gigahertz Apple A4 processor, and 256 megabytes of internal RAM. Now, it does have a capacitive multi-touch screen. It also has 3G depending on the model. This is the Wi-Fi model, so you'll see a little bit difference in the top here if it is 3G. You also have your dock connector on the bottom, and it weighs 1.5 pounds and is about, this one is $5.99, but goes from $4.99 to $8.29 for depending on which model, if you're going 3G or not. So let's go ahead and turn on the Galaxy Tab and show you the home screen. You have the option to lock the screen by sliding to the left and unlock by sliding to the right. So we've unlocked the screen, and this is the standard home screen you'll see on any of the Galaxy S Galaxy Tabs. You can fully customize it by touching and holding. I can get rid of this, or I can just leave it there, and I can group things into folders, create folders. It's fully customizable. And this one in particular has 5 total pages in which you can customize back and forth. Now, you do have applications in an app drawer down here. You can see they zoom in and out. And you also have a browser that supports flash playback. Now, the playback is subpar, I would say, for a lot of sites, but other sites it's more than sufficient. Just depends on your site. You also have the app drawer at the top, or the notification drawer rather, and you have different options such as Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS. You can make it silent, and you can lock the orientation and change the brightness. You'll get notifications such as emails and installs and Facebook updates in here as well. Let's go ahead and switch to the iPad and show you the home screen. Most of you have probably seen this, but from the home screen we can go into picture mode, or we can slide to unlock. You can see that you have all of your different applications on the front here, and you can slide back and forth, and there's not a whole lot of customization, but you can create folders by touching and holding and dragging an application onto another one. You tap and you can drag it out. That's pretty much all the customization you'll do on iOS. So as far as that goes, that's your home screen. There is no notification bar, and you do have pop-up messages, but they're not quite the same thing. So let's take a look at the multitasking in iOS and compare it to the multitasking of Android. To access the multitasking on iOS after you've opened an application, so let's go ahead and open the App Store, and say we want to switch to another application. We double tap the home screen. We go to our application such as Videos, and it will switch. And it kind of does a freeze of the application. And to get back out, you double tap. We'll go back to the App Store, and we're back. Let's go ahead and hit the home button to return home. On Android, it's a little bit different in that you generally hold the home button, and these applications truly can run in the background. While applications such as music can run in the background on an iPhone or an iPad, they do not run everything in the background, where you can do a little bit more with Android in that respect, where you have the different tasks. Let's go to the market. If you want to go to another task, hold, and we can go to the camera. Now moving along, this has a camera, and as you can see, here's the iPad, here's my Mac in front of me. This has a camera with flash built in and lots of different options, just as any Android operating system. If we want to switch between camera and video camera, we simply slide and go down. Now this does have a forward-facing camera, and at this point, unless you're using an application that has that ability, it's kind of pointless, but I believe we'll see more applications in the future that actually utilize it, such as, Skype, or I believe there's a couple others out there that can use it, but the other person will have to have that as well. And since not all Android devices have forwarding-facing cameras, it makes it a little bit difficult. That said, though, it's nice to have it for the future. The iPad at this time does not have a forward-facing camera, nor can it use FaceTime or have a rear-facing camera. Let's talk a little bit about the overall design. Now, the iPad itself is much larger, as you can see, but it is a little bit thinner, but it's heavier. The iPad feels the same as far as construction. Even though this is aluminum and glass, the Samsung Galaxy Tab is plastic and glass. The construction feels equally strong on both of them. I don't think there's going to be any problems quality-wise there. One of the things on the outside of the Galaxy Tab that may be interesting for Android users is this dock connector. Now, I know it's a universal dock connector that's sort of a standard, but this is the first device I've ever seen with it on there, and why they abandoned the USB for this particular device is a little unfortunate. The iPad itself has your standard dock connector that all Apple devices have at this time. So here you have your speakers on the bottom. You have a microphone, microphone on the side, your volume up and down, your on-off switch, and your sleep-wake button. And on the top, you have a 3.5mm headphone jack. You have a camera on the back, like we talked about earlier, with flash. On the iPad, you have your speaker on the bottom, on the right here. Dock connector, as we mentioned. Nothing on this side. On this side, you have your volume up-down, and your mute button, which used to be an anti-rotate or screen position lock button. On the top, we have our 3.5mm headphone jack, a microphone, and your sleep-wake power button. So now that we've talked about basic design and overall function, let's talk about everyday usability as well. This is actually much more surprising to use as far as a good experience compared to what I expected it to be. Having an iPad, I really did not expect much out of this tablet. However, I found it to be a great device for listening to music as well as watching video, as it's a widescreen viewing screen. So when you're watching video, you actually can hold it in landscape, and as you see the screen rotated, it's quite fast. I didn't show you that, but it works really well for music. The video's crisp, it's clear, the resolution is fine. You're not going to notice pixels unless you hold it up really closely. I think you'll be pretty pleased if you're using one of these. That said, the screen can be a little bit odd for some web pages, the way it renders web pages. Let's go ahead and check out the browser. So let's go to zollotech here. Oh. Now the keyboard does have swipe. Search for the site. Now I'm currently on Wi-Fi, but it does a great job on 3G. It seems very fast. So you can see it's loading fairly quickly. And there you go. Now my website rendered perfectly, but it can be awkward when you want to zoom in. It's a little bit difficult to read the text, and that's kind of what I was more referring to. The text is small, where because you've got a wider screen on the iPad, the text is a little bit larger. That doesn't mean it's not readable. It's quite readable, and it works well. and you can see the scrolling works well, and the pinch to zoom works well. To show you a comparison, let's go ahead into the iPad. Now, because this renders Flash, it makes it a little bit better experience. There we go. And speed is about the same. You can see, I'm not going to do an actual direct speed comparison yet. You can see the page is obviously bigger on the iPad, and it makes it a little bit easier to read. It's not that it's bad on this, but it is a little bit small, and if you turn it to the side, went to sleep there. Turn it to the side, it's not as bad, but it seems to be an overall better experience on the larger screen. So as far as ebooks are concerned, I don't think you'll have a problem if it's a one page here, but it is easier to read on an iPad. So the typing on the tablet device is one of the more important things I think you'll find with everyday use. Typing a website address varies greatly compared to something such as email or a short paper or a long email. Let's go ahead and show you that. We'll go into Notes, and we'll bring up a goofy thing my brother typed here. We'll bring up the keyboard. Now, it's fairly small in portrait mode, but if we rotate this to landscape mode, it's very typeable, and we can say, hello, my name is Aaron. We can type pretty quick, especially if you've got smaller hands. I don't, unfortunately, but if you have smaller hands, I think you'll find it's very easy to type on the iPad very fast, although I would recommend a case or something to prop it up at an angle. We also can connect a Bluetooth keyboard, or they do have a dock specifically with a keyboard in mind. Now on the Galaxy Tab, this is where I find this to have a big downfall. Now it's not necessarily a bad thing because these probably aren't going to be used for that the most, but I know of a lot of college students that are interested in the iPad as maybe an alternative to a laptop. So let's go ahead into Notes, if I can find that here. There we go, here's Memo. And we do have Swipe on the Galaxy Tab. So I can say hello, my name. See, it said July, my name is, and that's my fault. So this keyboard is very small sideways, but it does have swipe. If we rotate to landscape, it's still a little too small for me to type on. Well, I made a mistake already. And this may not be the case for you, but for me, the iPad has a very nicely sized keyboard. It's very difficult on the Galaxy Tab. That's just my take. If you're not planning to be typing constantly, I don't think it'll be a problem. But for me personally, I would definitely go with the iPad if you're looking for a device for a paper or to type with. Let's talk a little bit about email. First, let's turn this on and unlock again. And email is something I use regularly and constantly on my phone. But let's go ahead into the iPad, and we have multiple inboxes combined into one inbox now. You can see I have two addresses here, and they can be viewed at the same time by just going to all inboxes. I don't find that to be the same on the iPad or on the Galaxy Tab. However, I find email to be a better experience on the Galaxy Tab, especially with a Gmail account, as you get notified immediately when they come in through the top drop-down bar. I can quickly look at them, touch on it, jumps right to email, and we're back out. Let's go into the Gmail client so I can show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so here we are. You can see how fast that scrolls. Here's someone that subscribed on YouTube, opened up, hit the back button, I'm back. Tap, back. The iPad is missing a back button. It does have the back buttons up here at the top, but it's missing a back button to make this something that could be a little bit better. I personally find email to be better on the Galaxy Tab. Let's talk about some of the advantages of the Galaxy Tab. The Galaxy Tab has an always-on connection. Now you can get the iPad with that, but the Galaxy Tabs all have this. I believe they're going to be selling Wi-Fi only versions, but at this time I don't know of them. Now, one of the huge advantages, at least for a lot of people that have a data plan, is the ability to tether. If we, it's not there, it's in the applications. If we go to applications, we have a 3G mobile hotspot. And what that is we can turn the hotspot on and use it with a laptop that's nearby, our cell phone, Turn on. Now you do have to pay extra for this, but turn on a laptop or your cell phone or any computers nearby and you'll be able to connect your device to it. Now what you'll see is find Galaxy tab in the network list, and here's the password to connect. And to show you that it works, we'll go to Settings on the iPad, Wi-Fi, and there's the Galaxy tab network right here. If you can see it, there's a Galaxy tab network. And it's going to ask for a password, and our password is right here. And I will be changing this, you know, when I actually use it in the real world. But 53155 and now I'm going to connect to the Galaxy tab. Now I have my internet coming from that on the iPad. So that's pretty neat that you can do that. And the Wi-Fi hotspot may be a huge consideration, considering in order to do that with your iPad you'll have to jailbreak it. A lot of people have asked me about book reading on the Galaxy tab. Now, a lot of you that have seen the iPad or played with an iPad or have an iPhone, iPod Touch have used iBooks. You also have the Amazon Kindle app. And on this device, book reading is fantastic. It's a nice screen, it's a fairly high resolution. You have a nice application, iBooks or Amazon, and you can get just about any book you want. Now, on the Galaxy tab, you have just about the same resolution, minus a little bit, but you also have the Amazon Kindle app. And the nice thing about the Galaxy tab is it actually is about book size of one page or a small novel. And when you read it, it's not a bad experience, but it is a little bit smaller. So those looking for larger type and less page turning may want to go to an iPad, but those that want a book-sized device, this would be the one to get, just because it's Kindle sized and shaped. So it's very nice for book reading, and I think those that use it will be pretty happy with it. One of the big things that I look for in a device is music. Now we're all familiar, most of us are familiar with iPods at this point. The iPod app on the iPad is fantastic. It has great sound, the device itself, it's quick, we can browse our artists, it's very familiar to most of us. That's where I think Android is lacking. Now they've done a good job of it on the Galaxy tab, and the Galaxy S phones in general have a nice music player. There's no songs on this one itself, but the layout is very similar to that of the iPad, and I don't think that there's any problem with sound quality or anything. Comparing these two, I find them to be just about identical as far as music, and that's a huge step in my opinion for Android. Battery life on the iPad at this point is unmatched. You can easily get over 10 hours out of the iPad. This is playing video, you can get 10 hours. Now, for the size device, this isn't bad. You can get about 7 hours. But as far as longevity, those extra 3 hours on a flight, or you don't have time or any place to plug it in, the iPad will win out. However, 7 hours seems to be more than enough for the majority of people. One of the advantages of the iPad that Apple just recently added with iOS 4.2 or 4.2.1 is the ability to use AirPlay. Now AirPlay allows you to stream your music or your videos directly to an Apple TV. Now obviously you're going to need an Apple TV and want to be in the Apple ecosystem to do this, but what you can do is, and there's an email coming in, but what you can do is open your iPod or open a video, and you'll get this symbol right here. And what that is AirPlay. We can tap that and change it to Apple TV, or we can change it back to iPad. When you play a movie, it will send the movie over. When you've got to go, if you're not done with the movie or video or whatever you're watching, you stop it, switch it back to the iPad, and it will keep your spot. And that's one of the really nice features. Now obviously if you don't have an Apple TV, don't have an interest in Apple TV, this probably isn't going to matter to you either way, but it may be something you're interested in. So finally, let's just talk about my overall experience with the device. You know, at first, I've had an iPad since launch. I've had Apple products for quite some time. I really thought that I was going to hate the Galaxy Tab. But I sat down one of the first nights I got it and started playing with it and said, you know what, I'm just going to use it as a web browser. I'm going to watch some YouTube videos. And I found that its speed was really something that I enjoyed, especially with the notification bar with Android. I just found it to be a really enjoyable experience. It's super fast. I mean, it's got basically the same specs, almost a little bit better than the iPad in this case. the overall experience is great. The only place where it lags is Flash, but that's okay because the iPad doesn't even have Flash. So at this point, you can do Flash with an app browser, I know, on the iPad, but it's not quite the same experience when you load a Flash app on here. It's not going to be something that you're going to want to use as far as regular Flash animation type things, where you might play a game on it. I find that to be really choppy and slow, but I think the overall experience with the device is quite nice, and I would definitely recommend it to someone that doesn't want an iPad and wants something that's more customizable and you know, has a wireless hotspot built in. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.